Good. Good evening. This is the work session for Northfield City Council, August 16th of 2022. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 in the Press of Atlantic City on January 8th of this year. May I have a flag salute led by Mayor Chow, please?
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I complete seated.
Hold, please.
Everything for repeating through that other speaker. Get up and go to sleep or go wherever I want to.
Exactly.
You don't even need to watch anymore. So anyway, Rick, I just like to send to you this, and it's only a small token of our appreciation of your dedication, as I said. And what it says here, to Richard Kroger, with sincere appreciation and gratitude for your dedicated services to the city of Northfield and its residents. And it's presented to you as the Public Works Operator from 1995 to 2022. So congratulations and best of. When you did one the first time there, so, and Phil Monroe was the mayor.
Yes. Excellent.
And Mike Silkine was your chairman, right? Right, it's Sigmund, yeah. Boy, those are old names, right?
Yes.
All right, thank you so very much.
Rick, thank you. Did you want to take a moment to get any photos or anything with the whole family or, and with the mayor and the crew?
All right, ready? Oh, yeah. Sure. You come on over here. Okay.
You got it, Dave? All right. Good job, Dave.
Oh, let's turn around. You don't want to see her behind. Great. Thank you so very much, Kroger family. Yeah. Thank you.
Partners Sunday with us. And we were having fun. I have thank you cookies for everybody.
Oh,
Thank you so very much.
thank you.
Take one of them now.
Is there any labels? Okay, we'll move on to our committee reports.
And by the way, if you guys want to, that's fine.
Yeah,
You don't have to listen to our boring stories and everything, but thank you so very much for coming, everyone, tonight. It was a great event.
Not that we want you to leave.
it's very odd that we have this many people here.
It's really a lot of fun.
Hey, Rich.
Consulting.
Hey, talk to the long hair guy right here. Okay. Councilman Deweese?
I'm happy to report that the slide has been replaced at the First Street Playground. Other issues for buildings and grounds, we have the quotes that come in for the stairs for the football score tower. I'll evaluate those with Dawn this week and see where we go from there. Additionally, we're getting quotes to replace the roof on the football snack bar. I have one so far, I waited for a couple more to come in, so I have a report on the next meeting as to what the status of that is. That's about it that I have for tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Owens?
Okay, well, first, the cultural committee opened up the museum and had a great grand opening for that on National Night Out. However, I think National Night Out would have been a lot better attended if we had it back on the bike path. It just, it just didn't have the attendance that I think anybody expected. Other than that, the planning board, the big topic was council's desire to have a sign out front of City Hall that will inform residents of what's going on in town. As you know, the planning board is and zoning board is sort of opposed to LED signs in a residential neighborhood. And sort of, and in fact, denied the country club who wanted to put an LED sign up. So their feeling is if they approve the Northfield sign, even though we don't necessarily need their approval, they will be opening up Northfield to a potential suit. If the country club came back and said, how come you guys can have an LED sign? We can't? That said, I think they do see the need for a public message board of some sort and an upgrade to the sign that's out there now. One of the planning board members, and I'm not sure who it was, maybe you remember Mayor, was it Rozier?
No, it was on my side. No, the guy.
But he came up with the, what about the sign that's on Route 9 and Tilton Road? Wouldn't that be a great place to have an LED sign? Certainly fit in with the characteristics of the neighborhood and would be more visible to more residents of Northfield. So therefore, if we have Northfield Night Out instead of NON that we had on our board out here, we might actually, have residents seeing that sign. So I would ask council to consider. Is this the consider? If we put an LED sign out there, that's fine. I mean, that's.
We don't
again,
own that land.
the planning board
Yeah,
doesn't-
that's state land.
doesn't-
we don't know.
Well, we
don't
pay
know
a dollar a
if we
year.
lease it.
Yeah.
And,
No,
my suggestion.
Well, this is,
Because I looked at the sign that we have, and bottom portion, and, I'm just making the assumption, the bottom portion is deep enough that we would put one of those message board signs across. Now, we, as our solicitor said, we don't own the property, however, we own the sign, and we do take care of the sign, obviously, but I'm sure that something could be worked out. I think that's a wonderful idea because it would have, as we discussed, greater exposure. That doesn't mean that if we still want to put some kind of sign here at City Hall, so.
we still would need one here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We still need something here to identify the police department.
They just ask that you be respectful of the residents,
Yeah.
that you keep the nit level down in terms of the amount of light, that it, maybe dims considerably after a certain hour, that it doesn't flash messages, on a quickly rotating basis, but that they're very slow.
So was the country club gonna do all that, keep the nit level down and all that? Were gonna
They
conform
argued
to
for
that?
all that, and we're,
And we still denied it.
because
Well,
the
then we
idea
shouldn't
is
go
it's a
here.
residential neighborhood, and,
Yeah.
I'm sure the mayor can tell you, someone who lives across the street, it can be somewhat disruptive in a residential neighborhood to have,
Well, they
to
have-
have an LED sign.
They have the solar panel lights that are brighter than that even now.
But not on Shore Road,
Standards.
not
Yeah,
right, not
they're
right
right
on
on
Shore
Shore
Road.
Road.
Listen, I think,
I
it's-
don't think we can.
I mean, I dare say the planning board should reconsider that personally.
oh, you mean an LED sign?
Yeah.
No, the panels.
Not the LED.
Well, they've got,
I think so too. I agree.
I thought the difference being,
Reconsider a sign for, I'm not opposed to these LED signs. I'm just opposed to the fact that we're gonna put one in and we denied that one.
well,
the
they may
difference-
revisit that if indeed we put an LED sign out.
but I thought the difference was if you have like a public service announcement on that thing, as opposed to theirs was just gonna be what they're doing, right? So there's kind of a difference.
That's
between the
exactly
signs,
what.
and that's
what
that's
my
what the
point was
ordinance,
to the
that's what the
board,
ordinance.
That, a yellow alert or even just special events, it's for public information. It's not
Right.
like
You can
I
put
said,
Amber
my
Alerts
example
on
of
there.
Crime Rev 999. That's not what it is. It's
Right.
about what's going on in our town.
Right.
And I think that serves, I think that service to the public is more important than, and we will be respectful of the neighbors. If we put up an LED sign, it won't be really bright at night, that sort of thing. We can do it without ruining, I think, the characteristics of a residential neighborhood. But their point is the country club may come back and say, hey.
I mean, in terms of the country club denial, when did that happen? I don't remember the year.
Several years ago.
So
It wasn't that long ago.
they have 45 days from the date the.
Oh, yeah,
notice.
that's expired.
Their appeal period is long gone.
But that doesn't mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pacenda, they can always come back with another application.
Different sign, cannot be the same.
A different sign, but yes, but come back.
That's what I would have said, yeah.
But the long and short of it is that the planning and zoning board, for the most part, said no. but understands the need for a new sign and that it will serve the public good. The no's were, for the most part, at least the way I heard them, because they didn't want the legal issue with the country club. That they, they don't want to say yes to LED on Shore Road. They would prefer to continue to say no. Council can do what it wants.
Yeah, they try to be consistent. But again, after one of the planning boards made that recommendation for possibly the Tilton Road and new road sign, I thought that was a wonderful place for greater exposure. And yet, on the same token, if council wanted to pursue it, we could have two birds with one stone here, so to speak, because we could still have our own sign here on Shore Road if we wanted to.
So just by way of background, so that council's on the same, or under the same understanding as the planning board was. Planning board presentation was just that, the presentation. It was not an application, not an application for development. It is essentially what's called a courtesy review and recommendation. The city goes to planning board, says, here's what we would like to do. Do you have any review comments or recommendations? They don't necessarily approve or deny us. This is council's decision in a capital improvement context to spend this money on city hall property. So we don't need planning board approval to do this. All we needed was their review, which they did, and their recommendations. And their recommendations were, number one, as Councilman Nutt said, consider a different location. And number two, if and when you do it, comply with the terms of the ordinance that governs electronic signs, which are color levels, transitivity, time periods, stuff like that. So I just wanted you guys to understand that it's not their approval that we were seeking, it's just their review and recommendation. And that's the way the municipal land use law sets this process up. It carves out municipalities, counties, and the state from local zoning regulations for capital improvement projects such as this sign. So,
Mr. Fasano, just a question for my own knowledge. I know there have been several organizations or units of that are owned by the city that are being managed by, for example, the Northfield Volunteer Fire Company on Burton Avenue, the library that's on Mill Road, that have at some point in time indicated that they would like to have an LED sign. Now, it's my understanding this is city property, so under what you've just stated, they can go against the ordinance if necessary, if city council wanted to proceed.
no, it would have to be an application.
It would still have to be an
It would have to be-
application?
No, it would have to be done by the city as a capital improvement.
Yes, oh,
project.
yes.
So if the city owns that land and desires to want to expend capital funds to put signs on those locations, provided we do own them, and I don't know who owns those
Yes,
pieces of
we own those
property,
properties.
it would be treated the same
Thank you.
procedurally.
Mhm.
And whether the city council wants to do that is completely up to them. That's not anything that city council has proposed, so just here, so far as I know.
That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you. Councilman Notaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I recently attended the ACUA Midsummer meeting. I will say it was probably one of the most stinky, interesting meetings I've ever been in. Quite the smell over there. Very neat place. I got the 5-cent tour of the place and learned a little bit about how things, you get rid of things.
Hello.
Yeah, how things flow. I will say that out of all the municipalities, Northfield is coming in well below. I don't know if that is something that, is attributed to our slip lining, process. So, maybe that's something we look into in the future. That's pretty much about it over there. For FAN, I will be attending the FAN meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. FAN is gearing up for the new season starting September 11th, and they have football clinics already starting tonight, and That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Leeds.
Thank you. The fire department responded to 27. I'll do Your officers responded to the Four Seasons for a gas that turned out to be multiple units. They went in there and they rescued them all. They brought 16 people out. They did a fantastic job. Officer Price, Skull, and here's Class 2 officer outside. Fantastic job that you get these people out there. People had no idea that they were overcome with natural gas fumes, and their quick action helped these elderly people get out safely. So I want to thank Chief aware of that. The fire department was at National Night Out. There's been some management change within Spear, and there was some transition lost when a request was made from the council to stand by there. The new manager, I spoke to him the day before, and he was going to attempt to get an ambulance there, but he didn't think he'd have the staff. But thankfully, the firefighters / EMTs were there, because at the National Night Out, somebody did go down, and the firefighters provided emergency medical procedures with that individual to help them regain their wits about them and stayed with them. And actually, when I understand from the chief, they the volunteers took that person home, got them back in air conditioning, and stayed with them for a little bit. The panel was thankful we dropped off some cookies to the fire department for it. So I want to thank the fire department for being out there. As far as National Night Out goes, I agree that turnout was kind of low. But again, this is something, you know, you're competing with other towns like Egg Township that brings bouncy houses, and they have all kinds of demonstrations, and you know, SWAT teams there and all of that stuff. But I think all in all, it was a good turnout. And I want to thank Shannon Allen for the work that they did on it, as well as the police department. They did a fantastic job. And I don't know if you're on part of this, but when I was there, one of the police sergeants had mentioned to me that Sam's used all the hot dogs and hamburgers for the event. He said it was 500 of each, so that's pretty substantial. So thank you to Sam for it. EMS, and again, I don't have an EMS report. I talked to the new manager, Sam, and Northfield. He was unaware that he was supposed to supply us with the report. So hopefully next council meeting I'll have one for July and August. That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last Wednesday, we had a meeting at the Atlantic County Municipal Court. I know I attended rather, and it was with the mayors of BHT, Mr. Hudson, and Mayor Maddock of Linwood. We requested to kind of just go through what was going on there and see the operations. So we met with the judges, Judge McGuire, Judge Velasco, the court administrator, Tony. She was very welcoming, and we had a terrific meeting. They explained and addressed the issues or questions about the court. I'm going to say issues. One of the major issues was about phone calls and getting a hold of someone. And they explained that they are going through learning processes, that they are aware of these difficulties, that they are addressing and trying to resolve the issues in terms of contacting them. Tony, who's the court administrator, said she's given out her personal number to folks, that she's there 60, 70 hours a week and putting the time in. So they are aware of the issues in terms of making contact with the court to resolve certain issues, and with the law enforcement as well. We talked about maybe setting up specific lines for police personnel to call, maybe a distinct line for each town. We're going to look into these, and they're aware. But these were concerns that were raised by not just myself for Northfield, but for Linwood and HT as well. So they did comment on them, they're aware of them, and they are investigating what they can do to improve that contact. That being said, that the court's moving along, another city was added, maybe 10 municipalities part of it, and they're hoping that by the new year, maybe 1 or 2 more might join. So it is operating as expected at this point. They stress that we need to recognize that this is a major undertaking that's only 6-7 months in now, 8 months in. So there's going to be hiccups. There are always going to be road bumps. But they are working through them, and everyone is very, pleased. And the judges were very forthcoming about what was going on in terms of operations. They also did take us through the facility. So it was the first time I went through the facility, and they pointed out everything. They're adding new personnel, right? They are hiring new clerk to help alleviate some of the communication issues as well. So it's a matter of training them. So things are progressing very nicely. It's still a work in progress, but I felt very comfortable with what they shared with us and the operations moving forward. I think it was Corbin City. Corbin City. They're hopeful for a few others as well that have indicated an interest, and they're kind of assessing. I think for a few municipalities, it was a matter of, let's see this get going and see what happens. And I think they're assessing, I think, considering it for the next year.
Excuse me, Chief, one of the topics that I just mentioned to Councilman Smith, and maybe I misunderstood. I thought we were with the Phoenix system that we do have now the e-summonses. E-ticket.
I don't believe it's the same thing. My reading of it, I'm very familiar with the summons. In fact,
Okay.
that email is the one thing how that.
Okay.
As of right now, I have no idea.
All right, so they're two different animals.
I keep in fact counting.
Yeah, Ventnor's the one municipality that's using it, and I brought that up to Chief. I shared that they had a PowerPoint presentation that they shared with us, and I forwarded that to the chief to take a look at. He indicated he's going to reach out to Ventnor to ask them questions. The court administrator, Tony Thomas, she expressed that with the e-summons for code enforcement as well, that was going very well. It's helping alleviate some of the backlog, and there is a backlog. So that's one of the things I expressed in terms of court operations, transferring all of the municipalities' dockets into the one central court created a backlog. So they're working through that. That's one of the issues that they are addressing. But she did say that the Ventnor's use of e-summons was helping to streamline that in terms of summonses. So yeah, I asked Chief to take a look at that. He indicated he would reach out.
It's my understanding that's just a better system or way to document these things. Right.
Did they mention anything, how things are running as far as budgetarily? I mean, I know that was a huge question here and I guess throughout many of the towns.
Yeah, we did. That did not come up. That wasn't.
More operational?
Yeah, it was more operations. So that is something that we could address. Obviously, as we move through this year, we'll have a better idea as we get towards the end of the year where that stands.
As these new municipalities come on board, Corbin City, the other one?
That was it.
Just Corbin, okay, so it's just one.
There was one that came on right after
Right
it
after it
started.
started, so
I
that's
don't remember who that was.
Does that recalculate the numbers of what some?
It will, but Corbin City is a very small.
Yeah.
There's a
that one.
very, very tiny percentage of cases that come from Corbin City, and it's all state police, so.
That's a different. animal.
Yes, once, I mean, the hope is that we get some of these larger municipalities in there, that they see the value in it, and that would help
Oh.
bring more substantial savings. Hopefully that happens.
Yeah, they allocate the cost based on number of cases. So
Right.
So I have a client in Egg Harbor Township who has a zoning violation. I literally couldn't get through to the court if I didn't have the prosecutor's personal number. When he told me, Chris, just log on to Zoom. He's like, it's the only way you're gonna get through. I think did they indicate whether they're hiring more staff?
They did indicate they're hiring more staff, and they also indicated that they are assessing the structure, the infrastructure they have in place for the phone systems to try to make that more efficient. So
Sounds expensive.
they are,
There's going to be some bugs there.
they are aware of it, and they did stress that they are very much aware of it. They are attempting to make whatever modifications. they
Literally
can.
easier for me to jump on Zoom than call
Yeah.
somebody in the court.
Any other questions? All right, moving on, the Little League is, they have a fall league that's set up, and this Friday is the last day for signup. So anyone out there who wishes to have their son or daughter sign up for fall ball, this Friday, April 9th, or August 19th. August 19th is the last day for fall ball. Northfield Community School, they have their meeting next Monday night at 7 o'clock in Northfield Community School, their regular monthly meeting. Obviously, they will be gearing up for the start of school again as we head towards Labor Day. And shared services, we had a couple of meetings. I know that Councilman Leeds and Councilman Notaro, myself, met with Linwood Mayor Maddock to discuss dispatch. So that is a topic on the agenda. I had spoken previously about the agreement with Egg Harbor Township and how dissatisfied we were, and our approach to them was not met with much resolution at all. So we are exploring. We did talk about, possibilities of looking elsewhere, whether that would be in-house, or I know that myself and Mr. Leeds will be meeting with Ocean City tomorrow, the chief of police to Ocean City, to look at their dispatch and see if they would have interest in the company dispatch services. So that is something that I know Councilman Leeds said that he'd be able to attend tomorrow as well. We'll meet with Chief Brittigan tomorrow. So the next council meeting, we'll have some more information there. But we are looking into alternative measures for dispatch. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bucci.
Okay, I don't have anything for insurance and safety. The library, they are wrapping up their summer program. They've had a nice attendance in all those programs all summer long. They've had some turnover in personnel that they've replaced. They've finally done away with the need to wear masks in the library. So that's for the library. For Municipal Alliance, National Night Out was it was a nice turnout. I agree with Paul that we should probably move it back to the bike path. That's my personal opinion, but yeah, and as far as Councilman Leeds said about Sam's donating, I think it was a total of almost $800 that they paid for us, so that was nice of them. Trunk or Treat is our next Municipal Alliance event, and that is October 8th from 4 to 7 at Birch Grove. And the only other thing I have is my Economic Development Committee meeting is this Thursday at 7 o'clock in City Chamber. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. From my committees, as everyone may know, our tax collector has resigned. She took a position in another town. In the interim, while we seek another collector, she has agreed to stay on part-time as one of the items on our agenda tonight to adjust for it as a part-time person rather than at her full-time rate to help us, because this is since bills just went out, this is the very busiest time, which would also be the busiest time for the town that she's leaving to go work for. So as you know, as you can assume, the office is pretty busy in there, but she'll be assisting with certain tasks that that you would need someone other than someone clerical that we have there. So we are seeking a new employee there, and we have some set up, but always the more the better. But as we know, this job market is difficult, as it's been difficult to find all positions. Everyone got the copy or a digital copy of the audit, and once again, we, as the terminology goes, the financial statements fairly present all material respects, the regulatory basis, balance sheets, and account groups as of December 31st, 2021 and 2020. That's accountants speak for exciting stuff. So there were no issues. There were no things raised that rose to the level of being in the report. So the audit, essentially, that's a clean audit. And that is all I have from my committee. We'll move on now to the work session, ongoing business. Rami, I believe you said there may be an update for the Northfield Avenue Route 9 drainage. Oh, the county, I'm sorry. Oh, they're the one, they're there. Okay. As far as the auction of land, I think we're still waiting for responses from the various agencies to, okay. Okay, we'll move
I have
on.
a question for.
Yes.
Rami. Rami, on the stormwater facilities for the county, did the engineer give you any sort of a date? Okay. Okay.
While you have the grant, you had some update on the grants?
Yeah, Councilor James and myself, we had a pre-application meeting. After we had the Sign Ordinance application authority and that they would handle the application. So we explained to them that we are seeking a grant application for the bike path, lights, safety, wider the path, and they're very receptive. They give us some points how to prepare the application. To phase the application into different phases, because they might be able to fund one phase, not the whole project. Because when they run out of money, if they have a portion left and we are seeking more than that, they bypass and we do the same.
Or they go to somebody who
Let's-
they have enough money to fill their whole grant?
Exactly. So they recommended that we phase the grant, and if they have funds for one phase, they will do it. So that's what I'm gonna work on the application. Council will do. And the deadline for the application.
At the South Jersey Transportation?
It's NJDOT.
Oh,
Municipal aid, will set aside.
I said it's not.
Transportation map. Deal with transit, they don't know the local needs. And when we spoke with them about the bike path, they exactly knew what we're talking about. They had a very good idea of what they need to do. And they were very receptive.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the sign ordinance, which we, actually, there's two things on here for the signs. The City Hall sign, which we discussed already partially, but did you send those changes out to everybody or just in
No, I
the?
just sent them to you.
Oh, okay. One of Councilwoman Bucci had suggested, I guess it's from feedback from some of the
From
businesses.
Businesses that I've been dealing with,
Okay.
my economic development committee.
In our sign ordinances, we, one of the things is temporary signs for grand openings. And as it stands now, they get 30 days. Is that correct, Mary, from the application, either from the application or their date of opening? The problem being if they, what recently occurred is somebody went and got their mercantile license. So the clock started on the 30 days, but they were nowhere near time to open. They were just being very efficient in getting their paperwork in. So then they weren't able to have a sign for more than a couple days.
If the clock starts ticking when you get your.
Well, we've made an adjustment to the application now to try to fix that. But one of Councilwoman Bucci's suggestions there would be 90 days. So put that out there so we can discuss that. I don't see any reason that a 90-day grand opening shouldn't be. It's a temporary sign. It's a grand opening. Is that your?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, now we have how many more ice cream parlors opening soon? Sure, they're going to want to put a 30-day sign. So does anybody have anything to add to that or?
Do you ever want to consider these businesses that are gonna have like some kind of a special event, like sale, something like that included?
Well, that's some of the other ones that we have on here would be like the,
I'm just, in terms of, also in terms of term, how long?
yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to go, one of those signs going out of business and that lasts a whole year, you know, that little.
Yeah,
tree.
yeah, that would be, to limit the amount of time certainly makes sense, even for any type of sale or special event. The other one would have been, so that fitting into that would be more like the flags and banners, which are prohibited. And I know we talked about that last year.
I will tell you that, you know, on the planning board, we've had some problems or discussion on these banners and flags. Namely, with all due respect, some of these banners are not fixed very well. I know we've had some situations. I remember Wendy's, for example, we had a big storm and it blew out of the holder. I know that some of the, and there's one still existing. If you drive by on New Road, there is a banner, and unfortunately, the owners have, it's my understanding, are no longer in that building. And no one is taking care of the banner, and it's in shreds. It's an absolute mess, and we can't go in and remove it because it's private property. On the same token, that, you know, the degree of banners as far as fading and ripping and tearing, I think it does not look good towards the city.
Yeah,
Larry, this banner that's ripped to shreds, is it in a vacant property?
No, not to my knowledge. Actually, it's other businesses.
Are they,
What business is it at?
is it in a business that's out of business and it's just sitting there vacant?
It's my understanding that the banner was originally owned by a business that's no
No
longer
longer
there.
there, so they're out of business.
They're out of it, and now there are other businesses.
Did anybody contact the landlord from the city?
From my understanding, we contacted whatever they could find. But it was, the comeback that I got was that we don't want to remove it because it's private property. And it's right here on Hollywood and right across from Adams Perfect.
So
And
we
it's
can write
been
it,
there since at least last year, at least.
I mean, we could make it an understanding that these flags are in good repair.
yeah, that's one of my notes that,
That's all.
I mean, maybe we should try to contact the owner of the property. I think that's the first.
Do we have any existing ordinances that says that you can't do that?
the current ordinance does prohibit those types of signs.
Send out a letter saying, hey, why don't you violation of this?
Well, I think that's the problem, is there's no answers. There's nobody, the business,
Somebody has to own
the business, somebody owns the building, somebody owns the building, so that,
I honestly feel that a couple of bad eggs shouldn't spoil it for people that are gonna use these banners in the right way for the right amount of time. I think what Carolyn is doing is outstanding. I think our businesses, it's our livelihood in this town, and I think we.
One of the things you just regulate how long they fly. It's, you know, during their, you know, business
You know, like
hours.
the grand opening
Yeah.
for
Right.
property like that.
Just, we need to enforce it a little bit better, maybe.
We just have to make sure that they're not in a situation which is causing any distraction or too
Correct.
close to the street, you know.
yeah, there should be a setback. Again, as I was going through the notes. A setback, a limit, if it's a business or a group of businesses with, as Carolyn has suggested, more than 5 storefronts, limit how many of those there can be.
First come, first served, correct?
Well, that's among them to fight it out, but apparently,
I mean, the
and we
problem,
did discuss that last
Yes, we
year.
did. We did.
I mean, the problem
That
is,
may be difficult to.
Yeah,
Just let them do it.
I would let them do it too. Here's,
if they,
here's,
if you have it set back off the road, at least, I would say at least 15 feet. I don't see it as, yeah.
if they're willing to spend the money and have them in good repair,
Yeah.
and it gives them an advantage on their business. If you look at Tilton Road, the majority of the shopping centers are dated. So if they want to spend money to put up a sign to bring business in, I think I don't see a problem with that. I mean, they're not going
I'll-
to put something up that's obnoxious, honestly.
I'm in support of it, but you know, with all those buildings you talk about, there are driveways that come out of the buildings and those flags can't be in those sight
Oh,
lines.
absolutely.
And that, and
Yeah.
so it has to be somewhat regulated, but I am in agreement to
Yeah.
allow
all
them.
right, well,
Yeah, not in the right of way.
let's,
We're looking at lemons for like the grand opening, because that Oakcrest and Route 9, that's only the corner of the grand opening for 2 years.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
here's another, because you have like an area like the Trockey, that Trockey complex, and you got an area like the movie theater, you know, with 12, 15, 20 businesses in it. Where are they all putting their signs?
Well, that's why it's limited to 6, right, or whatever.
5.
To do that.
They do it in other towns. That's how Linwood's ordinance is written.
Even if it was one per.
What
Well,
strip,
that-
what strip mall does Linwood have?
They don't.
Just
Well,
cut
they have,
Cornerstone.
Central Square and Cornerstone
And, yeah, the one.
and the Exchange or whatever it's called. Is it Exchange?
And, yeah, and that one that's across from Central Square, they have those
Oh, yeah.
banner signs, and open signs.
Oh, that's right.
And
Forgot that one.
I know last year they were shredded and they just
Yeah.
put some new ones in. But on the.
But those are right in, those signs are in the site triangle. They're in,
Yeah, well.
they're right in the entrance.
The other thing that you brought up, I mean, Greg, is the point is that, you know, we have no process right now, if we go ahead with this, that we have a date of when they put it up, you know, was it last week or was it 2 years ago? We have no process of documenting that. So, well, that's what I'm just saying, that's fine, if that's gonna be part of the process, but right now, we don't have that.
well, that's why we're discussing it.
Procedure.
We make it
Well-
something cheap.
But we
I'll,
do, it's the date from the mercantile.
No, I know that's
But-
grand opening. I'm talking about just regular ones for business. We're not talking about the ones for grand opening.
I guess, what are we talking about in addition to advertising a grand opening?
Just one that says open
Sale.
or,
For sale,
or
so-
like, I'll tell you what my concern is. The Cafe Brew is right in the middle of nowhere.
That one on Tilton.
And that's the one that had
Yeah.
to sign up for grand opening sign up for 3 days, right? So they just want to put an open sign or a coffee sign. They're not near anything else. There's nothing in
well,
there.
and that was one of the things, I'm not sure if I was discussing with someone. Maybe some of these flag signs is something we initially just talk about Tilton Road
Right.
rather
Well,
than,
that's basically.
rather
what
than
I'm talking
everywhere.
about. Oh, yeah, yeah.
so, well, and let me bring up your other 2 points and then the other 2 were some of the other 2 prohibited signs you were talking about were the using red or yellow lights, red, yellow, or green lights, which are a traffic control issue or safety issue. But again, if they're set back
Like if they're set off, I mean.
back
what would
perpendicular
we
and the
consider
flashing
safe?
ones.
100
Did-
yards off the street?
Yeah, so,
Well, I mean,
so
you
those
have-
things,
And the planning board talked about that, I'm not so much 100 yards back, but they were talking about with these LED signs, the amount of lumens, because some of these LED signs can be pretty bright. They could really set them up high.
Yes, I'm
But I
not-
think
I'm not talking about an
we
LED.
get- Are you suggesting that open signs could be for the entire duration of the year?
Yeah.
Also, all businesses.
Maybe
can
they
put an
have to
open
take it in
sign.
at night.
Beg pardon?
Maybe they have to take it in at night. I'm talking about the flags. Maybe they take it in at night. Or
So
we
you,
make something.
so you can have theoretically, you could have all these businesses, 10, 15 down
No,
to a road that have
not 10,
open,
15.
that have open signs, flags.
No, we said we limited it. to
well, if it's
6.
10, I mean, it would be
You
at
can
all the
spread it out,
different,
I mean, yeah,
at all the different locations.
Do you
It
really
could be,
think that's gonna happen?
I think so.
I don't think so.
if we allow it, then it's likely.
Then it's good.
Then make-
Well, those are I'll put these together.
Right.
I'll share your email. I'll double check with you. There was one item I wasn't sure about. So it was those things, the blinking lights and then, you know, which are, and the
blinking light.
red lights and then the blinking
With
light.
the blinking lights, what's that? Is that the?
That's the other one that's prohibited, the revolving signs.
Blinking and moving.
So similar to a flashing open sign is some of the things they get caught up in this prohibited sign. So what I'll do, so we can put this to rest, what we can get feedback between now and the next meeting so that we can, we'll get this out soon and in the near term. Everybody give us feedback as to what.
Here's my feedback. There's more sign pollutions with, roadside signs and these little blinking lights on.
Yeah, I mean, For a business to have an open sign, I don't think that's too, as long as it doesn't have
Right.
I think
excessive light and if it's
No, I get it.
far enough off the road and not in the traffic. If it's against the building perpendicular to the flow of traffic, it's not
I
going to
think
be,
size and brightness
distraction.
of it absolutely
I
has
was
to
gonna
be,
say,
absolutely.
in what Greg pointed out,
Absolutely.
you know, with the sign pollution, with all due respect, I'll be the advocate here at Northfield. Over the many years that I've been involved in council and the planning board and the zoning board, it's been like a free-for-all. And I can tell you, there are certain signs, LED signs, that are in violation, that it was the interpretation of one of our officials that said this is what it reads. And I know it doesn't read that way because I was the creator of that sign ordinance. And so I know that that individual was wrong, but it's now here and there's nothing I can do because you can't say one business has had it for 3 years now and now this other one can't have it. So, you know, if you look at the sign ordinance that we have, and many of you may not be aware of, but there is a certain limitation of how many signs, and this includes on the side of the building and in the front and the door and the little open signs, how many are they supposed to have? And if you count how many of these businesses have, and I understand they're trying to attract businesses and our people, but they're in violation and we have let that go. And I just, with all due respect, I don't want to see and I'll use this cliche, a Las Vegas strip of signs. I'm really, really strong advocate of having some kind of uniformity that people will enjoy driving down Tilton Road or New Road or whatever, without going down and seeing all these blinking signs, looking to see what the sign says as it starts to scroll and creating a traffic hazard. I mean, I've done it myself. I'm watching this sign and I'm wanting to see what it says, and I'm not looking where I'm going. Okay, so I think that's something that we have to consider.
Again, as I was saying, if I think that the sign ordinance we have is prohibitive in some instances. We just need to make sure that we're trying to do what we can so that we're not overly
Sure, I don't have any problems. Don't get me wrong.
overly
I'm about to promote
aggressive
business,
in
and
stop.
I think there needs to be updated versions of.
Yeah,
of our
that's what we're
sign
asking about.
ordinance, yes.
That's
But
what,
I'm just expressing some of these specific ones that we've brought up already.
yeah, I agree. A scrolling sign with a long message would be very difficult
You know,
in any
the
direction that it
neon
is.
signs is outdated. It's the LED signs. What LED signs can do today is unbelievable. You know, it's the way to go, but they're expensive. You know, so a business who wants to invest that much money in something like that should have some type of leeway, I should say leeways, but something that we allow that in the city and keep with it, as you said, in conformance with some kind of dignity and respect and uniformity within our city. We can't have one portion which has such an ultra bright, and you remember a particular citizen in Northfield spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm going to say that exaggeration, that did not want that intrusive sign, billboard sign.
That's not a very good example, but that was, yeah,
That was a big sign.
God forbid if that would happen till the road, but yeah.
Well, there was, you know, believe it or not, there was a thought of having one by a company.
Thought.
So you're gonna send that around, let us all review it. I'd like to.
And we can
compare
discuss it the
ordinance that
next-
we have now, you know.
And we can discuss it at the next meeting with everyone having the input and decide if we're going to decide if we want to make any changes.
The one thing I don't
Big Vegas out there.
That has to get referred to the planning board to change the zoning ordinance.
Yeah,
The one thing that I'd also like to add into the prohibition of tattoo parlor,
Yeah, but that was on my list.
2022.
Of what? I'm sorry.
Tattoo parlors, we're not allowed to have a tattoo parlor here.
That was on my list.
Tattoo shop. We're having both massage, therapists.
tattoos.
Where's that at?
Yeah, I sent that to
There you go.
Tom.
Okay.
Tom,
Yes,
I sent
That's
that
only
to
a
you.
small.
You did.
Come on.
I was concentrating on signs first. I was
I know.
I was
Signs
gonna-
got it. Signs
I was
got
going
it.
to circle back to the tattoo.
Signs got it.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
No, it was great. It was almost like you were reading my notes. With all the sign information said, what about the sign for City Hall? Is there any other discussion on that? And I'd like to take a straw poll as whether we want to move forward after further
I
discussion.
understand the concern with us versus the country club, but the point, our sign is more to alert the public and stuff than insurance who's on emergencies, hey, be prepared, there's a hurricane coming, coming, anything else, the clicker ticket, buckle up for safety is different than somebody said, prime rib for $10. By the way, it's $10, that's all that. So I think that we should go ahead with the sign here.
I would
Mr.
suggest
President,
that we look into the one also on Tilton Road.
I would say this, like, I've read about the sign, heard about the sign, I haven't seen any depiction of the sign. Can we get some kind of idea of what it will look like?
Yeah.
So that we can.
Yeah, we have
discuss
renderings.
that.
We don't have it.
There is renderings, yes, I saw it a while
I
back.
think,
In clerk's office.
Do we have,
I'm sure Shannon has it.
Yeah.
The planning
All right,
board,
so
the
we'll-
planning board had it, everybody has it.
I don't have.
I don't have it.
I mean,
okay, well,
it's public.
Is this sign just as intrusive as the one the country club wanted to do?
No, it's not as big.
It's not as big, it's not
No.
as,
And I think, but correct me if I'm wrong, this is going to be the same position perpendicular to the street as opposed to the other business was parallel.
are we gonna allow the country club wants to come back and submit an application for a sign that's not so intrusive? Are we going to allow that? Like, I just. think that-
well, that's up to the planning board.
You know, again,
That's a planning board.
no, I
They have to,
get it, but if
as
we're
they
gonna put a
mentioned,
sign
they
out-
have to come with a new
In
plan.
R1 zoning district, they need a zoning variance to
Right.
do that, so we can't answer that question.
Are we R1 too?
Yes.
Yes.
We just don't need any kind of.
We
just-
are very special.
It's government code.
And again, it's commercial versus public information, public safety.
I would like to see the sign, and I'd also like to see if maybe, oh, you could get me what was submitted.
All right, well, we'll get copy of, we'll get a copy of that,
City or for the country?
the city.
From what was,
Oh,
what
he
they
wants
submitted
both.
years ago.
Yeah, I don't.
If we can, if we have that somewhere.
I'm sure it's Robin would have.
Rob,
Yeah,
I could get it
Robin
from her.
Is there anyone else that is a yes or a no, or is everyone wanting to see the rendering? Yes,
Yes, but I like to see some information on the sign.
Yeah, kind of the
Yes,
same.
conceptually, yes.
okay,
I can probably get it for you between the meetings if you want. I mean.
okay, okay,
I'll need a hard copy because I don't have email right now.
no, no,
okay,
print
so
it, bring it.
initially, so we'll, initially,
Thanks.
I
Mary.
think we're majority on board with that. We'll get a copy of it in between, maybe, in between the two meetings, and we can move on from that, from that time.
Consistent with what we discussed, we'll have a resolution on for next month approving the capital expenditure and the ordering of the sign, right?
Yes,
That's what we're looking for. Yes.
And there were some recommendations, if we were to go pursue to the planning board on what they suggested the sign.
size and, yeah,
Comply
reduction
with
of,
the sign ordinance.
Well,
right.
yeah.
is that what they're suggesting?
Basically, they said, yes, if you do it, even though it's not a permitted use in this zone,
Keep this in
hopefully you'll be
mind.
courteous enough to follow the.
At least follow that, yeah.
Where it is
Okay.
permitted in other zones, which is, the periods of change, the number of colors, the number of lines.
And how bright.
I
yeah.
I don't see it.
Great, thank you. The next item is the ordinance, ordinance 10, which is the, everyone got a copy of that. The ordinance for abandoned properties. And a couple of the items in particular that I thought we should discuss and decide upon is the fees. On page 5 of ordinance 10, the fees that are in the, this was someone else's, or another, was this a state ordinance? Is that- This is our, before.
What you see is underlying information being new as a result of some state legislation, and the stricken text is stuff we have in our ordinance now that's being taken out.
Okay,
So go ahead, sorry.
thank you. No, that's what I was, so this is, these fees are what the state permits. So for example, the item D, foreclosing, for foreclosures, the fee of $2,500 for each violation. Foreclosing creditor, appoint a representative or agent to act for said foreclosing creditor.
So if you have a foreclosing bank that's located out of state, they're required by the state statute to designate an in-state representative. Your
Okay.
failure to do that is what triggers this per diem.
Okay,
So it's very easily avoidable for out-of-state creditors. Say, Tom Policini, you're my in-state agent. That way,
Yeah.
within the county, if somebody in-state contacted, discuss it.
Fine, $2,500 there.
per day.
That's what's permitted by the state statute. I love the parent of that.
Wow.
And they have a cure period, I believe.
Do we also have a fee for,
Yeah,
to
they have a 10-day
register
cure period.
vacant properties?
What's that?
Do we have a
Yes.
fee to register?
D, item D.
Okay.
So, yeah, they have a 10-day cure period. So in effect, once they foreclose, they have 10 days to get somebody in.
Designated rep, then they get cited.
Okay.
I have no problem with the 2,500 there.
There.
Just-
That forces them, that forces the registration.
Yeah.
Further down the, as I said, item D, so there's the registration fee, 500 per property, 2,000 per property annually.
So the 500 for the first year, does that go up each additional year that it's vacant?
2,000
Well, yes, it goes to that 2,000.
goes to 2,000
The
every
second
year
year.
thereafter.
Thereafter, okay.
Any yay or nay on that? Anybody have anything to add to that? Do you feel that's,
in addition to the taxes.
And what is the cap?
Yes.
Is 2,000 the cap on that, or is it?
All the figures
500,
you see, all the figures you
1,500.
see in here are the numbers set by state statute.
Okay.
I think the only one that really changed was 300 to 500. Our annual registration fee right now is 300. Statute permits 500, so I bumped it up in the draft. Obviously, we can discuss that. And then there was,
Do we have a ballpark for how many properties this applies to?
I have no idea, do we know?
I could run a report, but not from here.
Just off, I just curious off the top of my head.
Hundreds or
No,
thousands?
no.
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 And there's one other fee on page 8 in that box.
16, yeah.
That's, people are just completely ignoring this. And then statute.
Right. So that said, so the 2,500, I tend to agree with Chris that that's going to be in order to get them registered so that at least we have somebody local we can communicate with.
And in the past, this was a real problem when we went through that rash of abandoned, houses, people just leaving, foreclosures. It was a real problem.
Oh,
Getting a hold of people,
oh, yeah, 2010 and around that.
a real problem.
And these are fees being paid by the banks.
Right.
foreclosing on these
Thanks,
properties.
yeah.
Yeah, the foreclosing, yeah, typically the foreclosing property, yeah.
And to your point, the banks that are out of state, we had no shot at all getting hold of anybody,
Okay,
so it's a long overdue.
okay. Does anybody think any of these need to be changed? Just want to make sure everybody was aware of them.
No.
Okay,
So it's being introduced as presented. correct?
Yes.
Chris, no changes?
no change.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other new business? That was a good one. All right. Everybody can please refer to the regular meeting agenda. The minutes, Councilman Leeds and Councilman Notaro. Resolutions for the consent agenda. Is there anything? Resolutions 159 through 169. Anything that anyone would like voted on separately? 70 is a separate. Okay, so the consent agenda, Councilman DeWeese, Councilman Utz, Resolution 170, Councilwoman Bucci and Councilman Smith. Ordinance 9, Councilman Smith and Councilman Leeds. Ordinance 10, Councilman Utz and Councilwoman Bucci. The payment of bills, Councilman Notaro and Councilman DeWeese. And meeting notices, Councilman Leeds.
Mr. President,
Yes.
what was it for the consent agenda for resolutions?
159 to 169, 158 to 159,
Right.
169.
Yeah, reason,
I can't read the numbers. Thank you. Okay. At this time, we will open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any subject, we ask that you please state your name and address for the record and observe a 5-minute limit per speaker.
Mayor, council members, appreciate it, 9 Johnson Drive. I think I was misled why I was coming.
Me too.
Watch CNN and Fox, but you get along really well. And I want to thank you for your passion for all the issues. I thought there was going to be a discussion on these halfway houses, and somebody drummed up a lot of, from here, so. I thought maybe I could just ask a couple of questions. just
Yeah,
for my own
yeah, that
understanding.
it's not on the agenda tonight, but
Yeah,
certainly,
So I understand if I'm correct, that this is strictly regulated by DCA. The city has no authority.
certain, certain ones,
How
yes.
about the requirements? The stay, how long people have to stay there? Nothing. So it could be a flop house even. We have no say whatsoever.
Unless they're in violation of code, our municipal code in terms of occupancy rate or other things going on.
And occupancy rate being nothing more than how many are allowed to stay there.
It's a limit of,
Not
I
how
believe,
long or how short term. We have no say, or you have no say.
well, wouldn't it fall into the same thing as does it fall into the same as a rental where it would have to be a minimum number of days?
Based on square footage of the
Yeah.
room as to how many people they can.
Like a 30-day, it would have to be a minimum of 30 days
Oh,
or
I don't know about.
it's usually
time
2 people per room.
Like in a single family residence.
that we don't,
Is it, so you can rent as many people as you have bedrooms? Am I
I don't think
understanding
it's
that?
technically rent.
So how do we get around that? If
We don't.
we don't?
We don't.
So can I buy a house and get money from the government there's no.
You have to go through the process.
Process, yes.
yeah, if you can get it approved.
There's nothing in how many we have, there's no density issues and how close they're together.
And I will say the majority of these homes are purchased by an individual
Or a company.
or a company, and they rehab the homes or buy the homes, and and then they obviously have to apply to the state as far as what has to be
And
regulated.
they company.
And they are answerable to the state for many of the things that
Yeah,
we bring up, like you just brought up in terms of occupancy.
and I'm not saying these people don't need help, I'm not against it, I'm just trying to understand the parameters around it.
That's one of the questions that has not come up, is how long or how short they stay.
Right.
Typically,
My
well,
wife.
yes.
Same address.
Okay, thank you. Typically, what the discussion was when a home came in last year and you're a little bit late, but
Yeah.
you missed that meeting.
Listen tonight.
But what happened, the concern there was that how long people stay in, and if they don't follow the rules of the house, they get bounced. And they have one of the residents is the den mother, if you will.
But the den mother or den father doesn't necessarily live at the
Yeah,
residence.
that's not my experience.
And I believe, and I don't hold me to, but in Northfield, I believe we have maybe a half a dozen of these types of facilities throughout the city.
Higher number. Would you know?
Higher.
You can run a report, but not.
Yeah,
No, we don't get information from the
Oh, you
state.
don't at all?
The only
We-
time
we-
we are made aware is if there is construction work done in the home that requires a UCC permit.
Sure.
In that case, the UCC governs the permit process. They come and get the file from us. If there's no work done in the home, there's no notification or permissions to the municipality at all.
Do you have any teeth in it? Like if there are multiple violations? I mean.
They have to follow, they are still,
But this, I'm wondering.
they still have to follow,
If
the-
there are more than so many complaints or police calls.
I don't think we've had any.
we don't have any situations with police calls that we're aware of. I mean, that we've talked about it. Yeah, we talked, well, I mean, certainly if there's, if something becomes an issue, please, the residents should let us know if there's an issue, but yeah, there's been others in,
My issue, and I have, as a resident, my concern is that there's no limit. Like you could have
we,
100, you could have 10, you could have 20, you could have.
well, we did discuss that and we talked about putting a limit and a density as far as how many in a particular neighborhood, but we don't believe it would hold up
Because of DCA government.
because the DCA governs it and we would,
And they would trump it.
so we could do that. I mean, we talked about doing it, but we don't know that it would.
Yeah, we talked about distance requirements
might be-
from each other, from public.
Yeah.
places.
Might be a
City, there's a density requirement.
We don't even
Some
know-
towns have done it, some towns have done it, but they haven't been challenged yet.
Right.
That's what we don't even know what they're doing. Like, they don't have to come to us for
That's right.
approval, so we don't even know.
We only know by residents that know
So
that
we
their
can
neighbor
put
is now.
limits in, but we wouldn't even know.
We
it.
wouldn't be able to govern that. It's true.
Yeah.
If there were offenders in there, would you have to be notified?
No, but
So
they are fairly, they are fairly self-regulated.
Well, they have to register.
Even if they're temporary and they're moving.
But Chief, do you know the answer to that? Yes, Megan's Law.
I don't know what tier they are.
Right.
So it would be the same as if they bought a house. And they just register with,
Yeah, and quite honestly, with the turnover rate that I'm at least seeing, I don't think we ever even have time, be trying to- when
is,
they're
is
in, when they're
is the
out.
one you're speaking of, do you know what type of home it is? Is it sober living or
You know,
recovery
I'm not
home?
sure.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you which it was.
Is it on there?
Yeah, it's right over there on Dockview, right on the corner of Shore Road and Dockview.
But
And
that's
I'm
not,
quite-
that's not one of the homes there. I mean, I know there are individuals living there.
Then how could?
Go ahead. I'm
There's,
sorry.
there's several.
Look, I'm not making assumptions, I'm not.
I'm going to tell you that,
There's a lot. of
from my own personal knowledge, that's not one of the designated homes.
So
that
then
you're
do I
referring
have
to.
recourse if it's not? And
Well,
again, you don't even.
Because
know
I know
if
we
I
it's
think-
a big
Offering it as an Airbnb or short-term rent, that is prohibited specifically.
I think it's an Airbnb.
I think we had
No,
looked
it's
at, I
not.
think we had looked at it back when it was initially,
So.
I think it was, that one, I
I
believe,
don't understand what I'm dealing with.
we'll
can
we'll
tell
see.
you Personally, that I know one individual, last year that was living there and, he wasn't under any restrictions, but he was just renting and,
For
working
some
at,
duration,
huh?
for a duration.
Yes, and I think he's still there
And
and.
I'm not saying it's not there, I'm just trying to understand.
What we can do is see what we can find
what I
out.
See and just kind of get it in.
Is this a
my mind.
single family?
Well, what this house was done.
It was a
I believe
duplex,
they
wasn't it?
Split it into two
So there's a
separate
family
doors.
upstairs and there's family downstairs?
Yes, correct.
Oh, that's
Um,
no longer the case.
No, okay,
No, but I mean, it's not two families.
It's
It might
both.
be up to 5, 6 individuals.
and I don't think I think they're all males.
Yeah.
Well,
You can
what-
look up, like, I forget the names of there's different names of people that own these, right? Different companies. So if you find those companies, and I can't remember, we had all that discussion, like,
It's
whatever
great.
it is, it'll give you like their property, like, that's how I found out what we had here when we were gonna have that meeting here.
Somebody up in
Ma'am,
Okay, well-
if you're gonna, ma'am, if
Pat-
you're gonna come up and speak, we have to have your name and address. for the record. That's all. We're happy to hear what you have to say. We just can't.
It gets confusing for the minutes.
Again.
The people on Zoom are really losing it now.
Just trying to understand.
We'll,
Can I ask you?
we'll see what we can find out about that.
You're not knowing what's going on there, but have you seen any kind of violations or code of violations like noises or?
Urinating off the balcony?
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing,
that kind of stuff.
you know. Now,
Apparently,
I
yes.
noticed Over the weekend,
Is there like a, do you know the?
the police and I think there's an ambulance maybe. So I don't know if they're dropping off, picking up. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
I'll see what we can find out about it and we can make sure that it's,
And if it's helping them and it's there, I'm like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to understand. Like you
But they-
said, You know, it's not a designated
It's not,
house.
definitely
Then
not.
how can we have multiple residents living in a single dwelling?
that's what we'll have to find out. Because initially, that's what it was.
That's the first thing. it says
Initially, we
residential
believed it
rental.
was going to be a home that was under the direction of the DCA when it,
Not this
a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Right,
No, yeah, but not this one in Northfield.
right. It might have been
Okay.
Hanson's for
Oh,
a
you're-
while, right? And then
I'm sorry, what?
it was a Hanson house for a while, I think. And then it turned over.
All right, well, then that's the last I know. So,
Multiple times.
okay.
I
And I
would just
think it's-
caution council. It sounds like nobody here really knows.
No.
What's happening. in
We have to
that
find out what it is.
house. I wouldn't make any promises to this gentleman or
I'm not,
anybody else.
no, I'm just saying I'm gonna find out what we can about it so that we can
Yeah.
make
it
sure and
seems
see
like
what-
There's been no problems and
Well,
we haven't received any
Mr. Simmons, I'm
complaints.
just trying to understand.
I understand that, but
If we have any recourse or if we don't.
recourse is to what?
Well,
not doing anything wrong.
If they're not a designated house under DCA rule and they're in violation of the single family residence, then do we have recourse as a city resident?
If they're in violation of some city ordinance,
Like,
Yes.
If there are multiple
can
men
certainly-
living there and it's not a designated
Right.
house, does that violate the zoning of the house?
if you're aware of a violation, you guys.
I'm only asking that, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, I can.
Can't
rent
answer
the
your
house
question
out
if you want
to
me to answer it.
5 I apologize.
That's okay.
I heard.
If you're aware of a violation, you can certainly file a complaint or a summons with the local police department. So if someone is urinating off of a balcony, by all means, call the cops.
Right, right.
If there's a zoning violation that you're aware of, by all means, alert the zoning officer and we can look into that. But I don't want a witch hunt
And I'm not asking.
occurring over a house that we have no idea who lives in, who owns, or anything like that.
So then I
that's
guess just the first question would be to go to the zoning or the officer,
we,
if multiple men are allowed to rent at one
What-
house.
I'll,
Do you know that they're renting?
Stay in there?
I mean, I could have
You can,
6 roommates if I want
yeah,
all
you can,
men.
you can rent
I
too.
don't know that there's a prohibition from 6 guys living
Okay,
together.
that's just kind of what I'm trying to understand.
what we have to find out first is what's going on. And then we can go from there and see if there's any violations of anything.
But I'm-
Certainly, no matter no matter who owns it or what designation they have, if any, urinating off the balcony is probably
and
not
it's
allowed, no
one
matter which one.
isolated incidents that the other residents passed on to. Yeah.
Well, again, so
Yeah. but-
that's a violation no matter what. So we can,
I think you've answered my questions, and I don't want to beat up the 5 minutes I've already used. And I thank you for your patience.
thank you.
I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
and
I just have to make sure my counsel. knows
absolutely.
what-
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Is it registered?
Yeah, that's definitely, we have to find out what it is. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Any
I have a
Zoom?
letter. Well, let's do Zoom first. Does anyone in Zoom wish to speak? Please raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Okay, we'll give them a moment. So the letter was, I guess, received today in the Dropbox. And this is from 651 Hollywood Drive, dear Northfield City Council. We are unable to make it to tonight's meeting and wanted to write to you to express our concerns about the sober living house that is across the street from our home and about the growing number of these homes in Northfield. We live in a quiet, single-family zoned neighborhood in between the Northfield Elementary School and Birch Grove Park. A sober living home was established across the street from us in October of 2021. We did not receive any notice about this house, and calls with questions to City Hall were not answered. There are new men constantly moving in and out of the home. The turnover rate of that house must be high because we have stopped being able to recognize the men coming and going. There are between 8 and 11 parked cars in front of the house on an almost daily basis. We bought our home in a single-family zone neighborhood in Northfield so that we would know our neighbors and our daughter would be safe to play in the neighborhood. We have no idea who lives in the house across the street from us or even how many people. The cars parked across the street have license plates from all over the country: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New York, and West Virginia, just to name a few. These are not just men from our community. We are asking City Council to look into the ordinance that was discussed at the March City Council meeting that, to our understanding, would prohibit Class F sober living homes within a certain number of feet from a school or playground. It would also limit the number of these homes in our town. It is our understanding that there are new laws or ordinances trying to be passed now that will make the citizens of Northfield responsible for paying taxes on these homes, as they will be considered nonprofits. These homes make an average of $10,000 to $20,000 a month for the owners. They are registered LLC businesses. The men that stay in these homes pay rent to live there. These homes should not be considered nonprofits, and our citizens should not have to pay their taxes. The last we heard, we have 16 sober living homes in Northfield. With these number of homes growing in our town, we would not like to see our taxes raised. We hope that the Northfield City Council will look at this ordinance and will help us to continue to keep Northfield a safe town for all of its citizens. Thank you, Megan and Scott Aspenberg, 651 Hollywood Drive. And we have no one raising a hand in Zoom, so that would be it.
The state has pushed this on us, and there's no regulation for density or any of it, right? They didn't take into consideration residents that are living in a town that care about the prop. Not that this decreases property values. Listen, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but I think that if the state's not going to do anything about it, I think we need to do something about it. I honestly would support any type of ordinance to at least limit the amount from the school zone, keep things under somewhat of a wraps. I get we won't be able to really enforce it if they just come right in. Mary, did we get notified when these?
No,
No, we don't even get notified.
unless they do construction,
Right. I mean,
unless they do construction and pull permits.
at
Other
least
than
an
that, we don't.
ordinance Is a start, and maybe we pass a resolution saying, hey, to the state, hey, you gotta do something here, you know what I mean? You're pushing this on people. We could end up with 100 of these places. You don't know how many. It's like the signs. You don't want 5 signs, you want 6 signs. You could end up with 1,000 signs.
But what would an ordinance, with all due respect, if we were to create an ordinance next city council meeting, and the state supersedes this, I mean, we're just wasting our time.
Well, at least we're trying something. It's almost like then why do an ordinance for the motorcycles if there's no?
Because we
there's
have
no
some
issue?
control, because Governor Murphy signed a bill that provides that.
It might send a message to the state, and
Well, then,
if
I
the
mean-
state's not gonna do anything about this.
But maybe,
Well, I would also-
if that's your venue that you want to travel down, that's fine. But I don't see an ordinance. I see more so of a resolution than an ordinance.
Maybe
I think
both.
one of the things we should do is direct the Aspenbergs and anyone else to appeal to our state legislators.
Legislators too,
Right?
absolutely.
Reach out to our state senator, our assembly persons, and contact them. Right? That would seem to be, they're the appropriate legislators. I mean, we're kind of hamstrung here.
We
I mean,
are.
I understand what
No
Councilman Tower is saying, but we don't, 16 houses, I don't know any accuracy.
That's about right.
But we don't know. Right? I mean, that's.
And
That's the ones we know
So
about.
you
The
can
ones we
call
know
the-
about.
You
They're
can call the
wearing
state at
is
any
60.
time and ask how many there are. It's not a secret. They just
Okay.
don't proactively tell you.
Okay.
And their wearing is, and it's legitimate, that 16 turns into.
Well, if it turns over a
10,
lot,
and
then the more
16
transient
turns
someone
into-
is, the more,
I would be all in favor of a restriction in terms of the number you can have in a per capita or per,
Absolutely.
per population basis, density, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's up to the state to address that.
Yeah.
I don't think we can address that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They threw this at the people and
Made it zoning regulation. So what other towns have done is made it a zoning regulation. So you know, if you create a distance of separation between unit A and unit B, unit B comes in, if it's within that distance regulation, number one, you gotta find out about it. Number two, you then have to cite them for a zoning violation. And I guarantee that's gonna go up the flagpole to see if it's enforceable or not, but I think the approach that other towns have taken is to make it a zoning regulation, not, you know, a prohibition on sober living, not a prohibition on handstand
No.
house, a zoning issue.
Yeah.
And that we discussed that, and
Yeah.
I think we kind of left it alone. We didn't think.
Well, yeah, I think we got,
If you separate these houses by, 600 feet, you can literally have one on every block. And I think we came to the conclusion that that's really not helping anything.
A limitation would be better than.
A limitation on the number,
On the number.
that I'm certain you can't do.
Well,
You can keep them so
I mean,
many.
just like you can't limit the number of ice cream parks,
Yeah.
or.
Can you keep them so far from like a school or playground?
Again, that's zoning. I
Right.
think you could try.
Well, then
to
if
do
you,
that.
if you separate them in distance, then that essentially could limit them.
but you could still end up with one on every block
But they don't, I mean.
Yeah, it's
again,
a
correct
mess.
me if
or
I'm
two
wrong,
on every
they
block. It's only
don't
600 feet.
notify the city, so they could do it, they could go through all this process, purchase the home, get it up and started, and we wouldn't even know about
Wouldn't
it.
know.
So you could have them within 600 feet or however, whatever the distance
Well, we
is,
would find
and
out
we might find about it after the fact.
when a resident comes in and says, hey,
And then we issue a summons,
Yeah.
and then it goes up to the state.
And then we- and then we'll see what the state says.
Goes up to the state. Right, so.
Who's gonna issue the summons?
What's that?
Who's gonna issue the summons?
Zoning.
You see how our hands are.
City gets sued for making laws.
Right, the
You would
attorney.
have
for
to
the-
change on the state level.
Yeah.
The state, it's
And we-
it's the assembly, it's the,
So going to our representative and saying, listen, could you make some sort of proposal today to limit density and to limit, how close these things can be to a school or whatever, you could do that.
and then maybe
It'd
that's,
have to come
maybe
from-
that is, in addition to asking our residents to contact our legislators, maybe
I
that's a
think it's-
resolution that we,
I've contacted
vote.
our legislators.
maybe that's, all.
and-
in addition to, we can contact,
One person.
we can contact our legislators
Yeah,
by
talk to all.
creating a resolution
Me too.
as to what we would like changed.
We're one, we're,
I was
if the
told he's very
people,
tough.
it's the people that are gonna make it happen, and, I'm with you 100%. And, whether it's a resolution from this council to say, hey, not that we're against, I think, Erlen, I think your idea with the resolution is the way to go, and we're not against this, we're not against people getting sober, that's a good thing, maybe a resolution saying, hey, can we go back to the drawing board here and take a look at this? I'm all for that. I mean, an ordinance is a little sticky,
Okay,
but maybe a resolution, and then the people of the town can rally and support that resolution and back that up with phone calls to, Vince Palestina and Claire and Don and, get on them.
all right. With that, the public session is now closed. And do I have a motion to adjourn the work session?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We moving?
Yeah.
I think we can. I don't think we need to. Let's go. Let me know when you're ready, Mary.
Ready, let's go.
Those are for the executive. For the executive session cookies.
Dying over here.
Dig in,
Take them away from her. It looks like Ty.
dig in, Councilman O'Neill.
All right, now he's leaving. All right, I was gonna go. with that one. Do I have to tap that?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Nothing.
Good evening. This is the regular meeting of Northfield City Council, August 16th of 2022. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on August 16th of this year. May I have a flag salute led by Mayor Chow, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us keep and remember in our prayers those serving in our nation's armed forces, especially our troops away from home, and also keep in our prayers the people of Ukraine and the people of Kentucky who are undergoing a major disaster with the flooding. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Mayor.
Roll call, Mrs. Bucci? Here. Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Here.
Mr. Palestina?
Here,
And Mr. Chow?
Here.
approval, may I have a motion for approval of minutes, please?
Implement necessary, sorry, this is like the reading of the minutes and public in the clerk's office. The approval of minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. Ladies and gentlemen, a monthly report for the emergency management. There were several incidents that were fire calls, gas leaks, brush fire, and hazmat. The OME had a county meeting for municipal coordinators. They met with the interns and discussed internship goals. Attended the economic development meeting. They also participated, as we pointed out, at National Night Out. And also I had a meeting with Mr. Drew with regards to discuss incident command system, the ICS training and capabilities. This is something that was brought to his attention with regards to recent incidents, and we need to re-examine and possibly change and modify the policies and procedures in developing the incident command system so that everyone is on the same task or level there. That's all for with regards to emergency management. With regards to police report for July, there were no narcon deployments and no DRE responses. Just to highlight some of the general events that have occurred, all responded. There were 308. With regards to motor vehicle stops, there were only 191. With regards to property checks, which is something that our residents take advantage of, is 917. For total arrests by officers, it was 16. Drug arrests by officers were 4, and with DWI citations, 2. The participation of the fire or the police department, as you know, with the alliance with the National Night Out, did a fantastic job cooking and organizing, and I commend all those that were involved, Councilwoman Bucci, Shannon, and the police department, and Chief Newman. So very good job, and thank you so very much for that. With regards to CGI, that is the system that is on our website that provides free website information about our municipality that people can review as far as some of the highlights of our community. We've had this program for several years. There is no cost, but there's always something behind it in terms of cost, which is a solicitation of businesses that advertise on the website itself. We also have a banner program that I want to continue with CGI, where we would purchase, or they would purchase banners that are being paid for by businesses with their solicitation. So I would encourage us to continue the program. However, before we move forward, I have forwarded the contract and policy that they've submitted to me to our solicitor for his review. And once we get a position as far as how he feels about it, then I can move forward. Tonight I have a recycling contest, and I'll put all the name and pull it out of the box. With regards to some questions I received with the VA project that was approved by the plaintiff board on New Road, that is still going on. It hasn't been dismissed, but the problem has been that there are certain permits that have been held up by the state, namely two, for example, the CAPRA. I spoke to the gentleman who is organizing and in charge of this project, And he anticipates the receiving the permits within several months, maybe 60 days, and then we'll move forward in that. Also, finally, some good news. The bus shelter that was supposed to be erected on Shore Road by the urgent care right there in the corner, that's been going on for over 3 years. It's unbelievable the bureaucracy that Shannon and Mary's had gone through. One person said, oh, we lost it, or we misplaced it, or it's going on, or somebody moved on, or something like that. But hopefully we'll get it in this year. For new bus shelter over there, but I can't believe how long it's taken, well over 3 years. So that's the end of my report. Anybody have any questions for me? All right, well, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Engineer's report.
Only two things for the report. We started the 2021 work program. Concrete work is moving forward. Within about 10 days, we'll be finishing with the concrete work throughout the town. And contractors have to start moving forward. That's when we will pay mill and pave the road solutions. The other thing is the water company. As you know, they installed the water main down Harbor and Shepherd Circle West. They're in discussion with the same contractor. So when he is mobilized to pave our streets, they will hire him to pave the roads. So we might get everything wrapped up by operation. Another discussion with the water company that some areas they need to do full paving still possible. So we'll try to finalize all that with the contract.
Thank you. Any questions?
Virginia Avenue is on that list, right? For the paving?
Local, yeah, yes.
It is?
We're doing, yeah. So I was contacted by a resident, they're concerned with the property, they don't want per. They don't want anything touched on their property, they don't want sidewalks, they don't, and I think I gave them the answer, we don't put sidewalks in, right?
Only curbing
When needed, yeah, so, I mean, I looked at, I'll give you the address and just take a look at it. I don't think that we're gonna do anything there, just by
Yeah, I think Virginia was just minimal, just.
minimal stuff, yeah.
From shore to.
Sure to,
Broad.
Broad. Yeah, I'll give you the address and just to confirm.
Okay. At this time, we'll open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any topic? Ask you please state your name and address for the record and observe 5 minutes per speaker. Anybody on Zoom?
Anyone in Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand. No, sir.
Council President, if I may just interrupt, I just pulled out the winner of my mayor's summer recycling cart contest. As all of you know, every year I give away 2 recycle bins to residents who submit their names in the box and give a rationale as to why they think recycling is important. July's winner is Mr. Gary Goldberg, who lives on Glenwood Drive, and he stated that recycling is important. It helps to reduce the need for landfill and costly forms of disposal. So congratulations, Mr. Goldberg, and you will be receiving your recycle bin very shortly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with that, the public session is now closed. Resolutions, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and having been reviewed by council will be enacted by one motion. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and if so removed, will be treated as a separate matter. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certificate of availability of funds. Here's an executive session of council, and it will be held at the end of the meeting. We'll come back into public session to make a comment for the record after the executive session has concluded. Any vote made on subjects discussed will be made in public. May I have a motion to vote by consent agenda?
Make a motion to adopt the resolutions 158, 2022 through 169, 2022 by consent agenda.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And one last chance to pull anything out? Roll call. Oh, no, we don't have to do a roll call. We just did it. Thank you.
Roger that.
You have the motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Make the motion to adopt consent agenda for resolutions 158, 2022 through 169, 2022.
Second?
Roll call.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of the consent agenda.
May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 9-2022? Oh, 170. My.
No, that's after the exec.
That's at the end. See, I got it right.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 9/2022. Be read by title only.
Second.
Ordinance 9 of 2022 is an ordinance amending Chapter 366, certified copies of vital records. This is the second reading. There will be a public hearing after which the matter will be considered for final adoption. The ordinance, since introduction, has been posted in full on the municipal website as well as in the lobby of City Hall. Any member of the public who requested a copy would have been provided with one free of charge in the office of the municipal clerk. And if approved this evening, it will be published a final time in the Press of Atlantic City on August 20th.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing on ordinance 9-2022. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on ordinance 9-2022?
Anyone in Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand. No, sir?
Okay, the public session for 9-2022 is now closed. Roll call.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of ordinance 9 of 2022.
All right, and now, may I please have a motion to introduce ordinance 10-2022?
I'd like to make necessary motion to introduce ordinance 10-2022 to be read by title.
Second.
Ordinance 10 of 2022 is an ordinance amending Chapter 268 of the Code of the City of Northfield governing abandoned real property. This is the introduction. There will be no public input, and the ordinance will be published in full in the Press of Atlantic City on August 20th. It is presently posted in the lobby of City Hall as well as on the municipal website. Any member of the public who would like a copy will be provided with one free of charge in the office of the municipal clerk during regular business hours up until the time of the public hearing on September 6th. On that date, there will be a second reading, as I said, a public hearing, after which the matter will be considered for final adoption.
Any other discussion on this ordinance? Roll call.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the introduction of ordinance 10.
May I have a motion for payment of the bills?
I'd like to make a necessary motion for the payment of bills in the amount of $1,515,055.05.
Second.
Any questions? Discussion, roll call?
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes,
Motion carries for payment of bills.
and meeting notices.
First, I want to talk about the next meeting notice Thursday, this week, August 18th, 7 p.m., the Economic Development Meeting. Councilwoman Boothby is holding here, and the next city council meeting will be September 6th, 2022, 6 p.m. work session, immediately following the regular work session after the work session.
Okay. Now I need a motion for resolution one, oh, no.
Yeah, so
A motion to adjourn to the executive session? No, not yet. Can't do that.
So for the people participating by Zoom, council will be moving into executive session, and anybody here in public and council chambers will be asked to excuse themselves from the meeting. The audio and video will both be paused. Council will remain in council chambers. At the end of the closed session, the audio and video will both be turned back on. Any members
You're
of
good
the
to go.
public will be invited to join the meeting once again in public, and a statement will be made for the record. So,
Mm.
Resolution 169 authorizing executive session not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, which is NJSA 10:4-12B4. In this case regarding contract negotiations for Government Workers Union Local 410 for white collar workers. We are required to set forth as much information as possible for the public about the subject matter to be disclosed, as well as provide for them the expected amount of time that can be expected to elapse before the non-public minutes can be disclosed. And for that, I will defer to the solicitor.
Thank you. It's authorized by resolution 169. The council of the Northfield Untitled Chapter executive session not open to the general public. According to the Open Public Meetings Act, matters to be discussed with contractual negotiations with Government Workers Union Local 430, specifically terms and conditions of any proposed agreement provided by labor council to council for potential approval and ratification. Council will keep minutes of the executive session as required by law, which will be approved by council and made available for public inspection. When permitted by law, it is anticipated possibly that action will be taken by council in connection with this specific matter at the conclusion of the executive session. If not, the timeframe for the release of those minutes is unknown. Council will remain in council chambers for the executive session and return for a statement directly thereafter.
Guy.
What?
He was the dancing guy.
No, Carlton, the doorman, was on.
Okay, recording's been reactivated. Mr. Facenda?
Council is considered an executive session as authorized by resolution 169. Discussions centered on contractual negotiations and ratification of an agreement with the Government Workers Union Local 430. Minutes were kept, will be available for public inspection when permitted by law. At this time, I think the council is going to make a motion to entertain the resolution number 170.
We have a motion for resolution
I'd like
170,
to
please.
make a motion to adopt resolution 170-2022.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Rutt?
Yeah.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes,
Motion carries for the adoption of resolution 170.
we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Greg, let me vote. Aye.
Greg, you're a little slow on the switch there today. You're a little slow on the take there. They got you both,
Yeah,
they got you
can
both.
everybody please give me back those confidential papers? Thank you. Just the memo from Nicole. You can keep the MOA if you want it.
Yeah, we don't want them,
Thank
we
you.
don't want anybody doing a raid at your house. I don't have to have, I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to get the prosecutor to do a raid at your house to get that back.
Oh, all right.